Hang on. Something's missing. Let's do this. Captain America Civil War is the final part of this Captain America trilogy in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the first movie in Phase 3 of the MCU. Now, anyone who watches my channel regularly knows just how much I have been looking forward to this movie. If you remember from my list for my top 10 most anticipated movies of 2016, this movie was at number 1. Hell, I was excited enough for this movie to do a spoiler for every movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And now that I have finally seen it, the question needs to be answered. Did it live up to the hype? Yeah, absolutely it did. This movie was awesome. Woo! Let's do this. That's an official spoiler warning. If you haven't seen this movie yet, well, why are you still here? Go see it, like right now. Just no questions asked. Go see it. So towards the beginning of this movie, the Avengers are all together. They're on some mission in Nigeria. They find out that the former SHIELD/Hydra agent Crossbones is after some kind of bioweapon. Yeah, I guess he just happened to survive a giant building falling on him. I don't know either. So the Avengers all go after him and his team in a really awesome, exciting opening action scene. As I always say, it's great seeing the Avengers work together, and it's great seeing what some of them bring to this table now since we last saw them. However, towards the end of this whole fight, Crossbones tries to blow himself up and take Captain America with him. Scarlet Witch, however, is able to use her telekinetic powers to send him away from Captain America, but unfortunately, she loses control of him, and as a result of that, Crossbones ends up destroying this nearby building, which kills a ton of innocent civilians. So after the Avengers return to their headquarters, they are confronted by the United States Secretary of the State, Thunderbolt Ross. He's still played by William Hurt, who was the same guy who played him in The Incredible Hulk. And me personally, I really like that they brought him in for this movie, simply because you look at The Incredible Hulk, and that's definitely become kind of the forgotten movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So the fact that they brought the guy who played Thunderbolt Ross and the character of Thunderbolt Ross back into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I feel it makes The Incredible Hulk relevant again, which I think is awesome. But he goes on to explain to the Avengers that due to the events that just happened in Nigeria, as well as the events that occurred in the Avengers, Captain America the Winter Soldier, and Avengers Age of Ultron, it has been decided that the Avengers can no longer act on their free will. It is time for them to sign the Soviet Accords. The Accords are basically this governing body that will control the Avengers' movements. You know, what actions they will take, if they will take actions, you know, the restrictions on superheroes. And of course, there are people who agree with this act like Iron Man, and there are people who disagree with this act like Captain America. But what I really love about this conflict right here is you really do see the points on both sides. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was Team Captain America going into this movie, but throughout this movie, I see where both sides are coming from, and it does make you sway your opinion at times. I mean, you hear Iron Man's point, and he's like, I created Ultron. Ultron nearly destroyed the world, and although we stopped him from doing that, a lot of people died. I had the mother of a student from MIT come up to me and blame me for the death of her son because he was in Sokovia when that happened. If we continue to act on free will, more and more people are gonna die. We need to be put in check. You hear all those points, and leaves you like, yeah, he has a good point there. But then Steve Rogers gives his opinion, and he points out the government has its own agenda. If we sign these accords, we are going to be forced to follow this agenda, whether we agree with it or not. What if they send us somewhere we don't want to go? What if they make us work with someone that we don't feel is the best person to work with, like Hydra? You saw the corruption that Hydra brought into S.H.I.E.L.D. They could do that again to some other government, and they could be forced to work with that. And then Steve goes further to point out, like, what if they stop us from going somewhere that needs our help? There could be people being held hostage, or a city that's going to be blown up. We could go there and help them, but what if the government doesn't allow us to do that? You hear his side and you're just like, shit, those are really good points too. Ugh, confliction. This movie did exactly what I wanted it to do, and it was awesome. So later on in the movie, the Avengers who agree to sign the Accords are in Vienna for it. Representatives from countries from all over the world are here to witness it happen. One representative in particular is the Prince of the Nation Wakanda, and that is T'Challa, played by Chadwick Boseman. Well, I think T'Challa is how you say his name. I don't know, I'm horrible with pronunciation. However, before the Accords can officially be signed, the entire building is just blown up, which results in the death of T'Challa's father. And security cameras reveal that the person responsible for this bombing is Bucky. And with his father's death, T'Challa is named the new king of Wakanda, but with that, he also vows that he's going to kill the Winter Soldier. And Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson, they know there's probably more to this story than there is. They can't allow T'Challa to go and kill Bucky, so they decide to go after him. They're eventually able to track down Bucky to this apartment that he's been hiding in, but Bucky tells him it's like, I don't do that anymore. That wasn't me. But nonetheless, a lot of people are now coming after Bucky, and this leads to a really intense, awesome chase scene, which only gets that much better when T'Challa shows up as Black Panther. I'm gonna say right now, the Black Panther suit, this thing was awesome. I mean, the suit itself is made completely out of vibranium, so it can't be destroyed, and T'Challa can't really get hurt by anything. He also has these really cool retractable claws. Those were awesome. And this guy is just chasing after Bucky like there is no tomorrow. This guy wants blood. I see Black Panther. He's just chasing through traffic. He's able to slice down the motorcycle that the Winter Soldier's trying to get away on. You just see what this guy is capable of, and you're just like, holy shit, this dude is fucking badass. However, before anything else can happen, War Machine shows up because he has signed the Accords and now works for the government. And this leads to Sam, Bucky, Steve, and T'Challa all being arrested. They're all placed in captivity somewhere in Berlin, but Bucky, of course, being the Winter Soldier and being as uncontrollable as he appears to be, he's given some like really expensive high-tech security cage thing. And while in captivity, Bucky's being interviewed by different people. They're trying to figure out what his specific diagnosis is that would cause him to make these explosions. However, then this one guy named Helmut Zemo, played by Daniel Bruhl, he comes in because he wants to ask Bucky some questions. Little does everyone know that this guy has discovered Hydra's trigger words that they would use to activate the Winter Soldier part of Bucky's brain. This just causes Bucky to go on an all-out rampage. He's able to bust out of this cage. And knowing that Bucky is no longer safe here, Sam and Steve, they get him out of there. These two guys have brought Bucky to the abandoned warehouse that we saw in the post-credit scene for Ant-Man. But here we get an extended look at this scene where we discover more of what's going on. Bucky has come to his senses. He knows what everything's going on. He knows who Steve is. And it's at this point you really see the struggle that Bucky has to deal with. He wants to be good. He doesn't want to be a tool for Hydra. He remembers all of the crimes and the murders that he committed when he was under that brainwashing. The problem is, because of those words and because of what Hydra has done to him, he can't control himself over it, and it takes such a toll on him. Steve can see this in him, and he obviously wants to help Bucky because Bucky is his best friend. Because that's what anyone would do for their best friend. And Bucky at this point reveals that he is not the only Winter Soldier. There is in fact a unit of them in this abandoned facility in Siberia. And he reveals that Zemo is going to go to that facility in Siberia. He's going to activate these Winter Soldiers to do his bidding. The three of them know they have to stop Zemo from doing this, but they also know that the Avengers who signed the Accords, like Tony, are probably not going to help them. So with that, they now know they need to get their own team together. However, they're not the only ones thinking this. Tony is as well. So with that, Tony decides to go to New York, where he's able to meet and have a little chat with Peter Parker. Now, when it was announced that Spider-Man was going to be in this movie, that just got me that much more excited. Because for those of you who don't know, Spider-Man is actually my favorite superhero, and when it was announced that he was going to get to be a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I was just so excited. I could not believe that this was finally going to happen. So now the question remains, how would Tom Holland do in this role? And I'm gonna say this right now, Tom Holland is the best on-screen Spider-Man and Peter Parker we have ever gotten. This dude fucking owned this role. When we first see him and when Tony first talks to him, he's just Peter Parker, and I completely bought him as that. You can tell he's a really smart kid, but you can also tell that he's really awkward and shy. He probably doesn't have that many friends. He also comes from a poor family. I mean, he just lives with his Aunt May. The stuff that he's found and that he's built, he's mostly just gotten from the garbage. You even look at his original Spider-Man suit and the thing is shit. But Tony, of course, approaches him and he says, I know who you really are. I know what you're capable of doing, and I think you can help us. Will you come on this mission with us? Peter Parker agrees to do this because he tells Tony that he understands the price of not doing the right thing. However, at this point, we now go back to the Avengers headquarters where Scarlet Witch and Vision still are. Scarlet Witch has basically been ordered to stay there because the government just sees her as too dangerous to officially leave the facility. And you can see how that's really affecting her because she's also someone who wants to go out there and help, but because of what happened, she now only sees herself as a monster. And of course, Vision frequently bringing up how she killed people in that building and how she's done what she did. That's, it's not really helping her feel better about herself. However, at this point, Hawkeye is showing up because he wants to get Scarlet Witch out of there. Because I feel like, and we got a brief hint of this in Age of Ultron, you feel like Hawkeye has become kind of like a father figure towards Scarlet Witch. I mean, in Age of Ultron, he gave her that whole speech of what it means to do the right thing, what would make her an Avenger. And you see a little bit more in this thing, how he's come over here, he's trying to defend her, he's trying to help her get out of here because she knows she's someone who's trying to do the right thing. I mean, you truly see the amount of care and responsibility that Hawkeye feels for Scarlet Witch, and I think it's awesome to see. Now, of course, Hawkeye wants to get Scarlet Witch out of there, but Vision's standing in their way. He's like, no, I cannot let you leave. And of course, with Vision being as powerful as he is, it leaves you sitting there wondering, it's like, how the hell are they actually going to beat him? And then Scarlet Witch just uses her powers to basically shut down the Infinity Stone in Vision's head and just send him plummeting like 30 feet through the floor. So now it leaves you thinking, oh, I guess that's how they're going to beat him. So now Captain America's squad, they all meet up at this airport, which consists of Falcon, the Winter Soldier, Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch, and Ant-Man. Yeah, I guess they just put Scott Lang in this van, they delivered him to Captain America, and they were just like, hey, you want to join our team? And he's like, yeah. Funniest part though is when he sees Falcon for the first time, he's just all like, oh, hey, what's up, man? Hey, we're good, right? We're cool. However, at the same time, before they can all go after Zemo, they get confronted by Iron Man and his squad. This consists of War Machine, Black Widow, Black Panther, Vision, and Spider-Man, who's now in this brand new, way more awesome looking suit that Tony gave to him. So now the two sides officially throw down with each other, and it's just awesome. I mean, the fight is so exciting. It looks so awesome visually. It's so thrilling, and it's also really funny. I mean, just seeing all these personalities of these certain heroes just clash with each other, you know there's gonna be some humor in it, and it works so well. I mean, there's a moment when Black Widow and Hawkeye are fighting, and at one point she looks at him and she says, hey, we're still friends, right? And he's just all like, well, that depends how hard you hit me. But I'm gonna tell you right now, I think the best humor in this fight comes from two superheroes, Ant-Man and Spider-Man. I mean, at one point, Ant-Man hands Captain America this little truck, and then he pulls out his growing disc, and he tells Captain America, throw the truck at this disc. So they throw both things at War Machine. It makes the truck huge, and War Machine's just all like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And it turns out it's a big gasoline truck that just blows up right in front of Rhodey. Ant-Man just sees this happen, he's just like, oh, I thought that was a water truck. And then it only gets better when Ant-Man reveals that he can use the suit to make himself a giant, which was awesome because when this scene happened, I had totally forgotten that Ant-Man can also make himself huge. He can't just make himself small. And the funniest part is Iron Man's just all like, alright, does anyone on our side have something really cool and miraculous that they can do to help us here? Well, speaking of someone on his side, it's really cool seeing Spider-Man in this fight. I mean, he's really funny, he's energetic, he's a great fighter, you can see. But what I also love seeing is how excited he is because people forget that Spider-Man in the comics, he was a 16-year-old kid. So in this fight, when you see him fanboying out and just losing his shit the way that he does, it's exactly how he would do it because that is what his character is like. There's one moment he's fighting with the Winter Soldier, and the Winter Soldier tries to punch him, and he blocks his metal arm, and he's like, dude, you have a metal arm? That's awesome! I mean, it actually gets to a point when Iron Man has to actually radio into Spider-Man and be like, dude, we're fighting these guys. Don't forget why we're here. There even comes to a point with Spider-Man that they're trying to go after the really big Ant-Man, and he's just talking to the heroes. It's like, hey, guys, do you remember that really old movie, Empire Strikes Back? And they use the ropes to take down the big walking robots? I mean, the moment's really funny, and it actually works in helping them take down Ant-Man. I mean, I just see all these moments with Spider-Man, and I'm watching this movie, and I'm just like, Tom Holland, you have officially moved Spider-Man Homecoming that much higher on my anticipation list for 2017. However, Captain America and the Winter Soldier, they know they can't stay in this fight for long. They know they need to go find Zemo. So with that, Black Widow, she allows the two of them to escape in the Avengers Quinjet. However, as Steve and Bucky are escaping in the jet, Vision tries to shoot them down. However, it only ends up in Rhodey accidentally getting shot, and the dude just plummets to the ground, and now he's paralyzed. It was a really intense and scary moment when it happened. I seriously thought War Machine was dead right there. However, at this point, the fight is now over, and the remaining members of Captain America's side, they're all arrested for acting against the Accords. As they're leaving, Tony does a little bit more research into the bombing that happened earlier, and he's able to find clear evidence that Bucky, in fact, was framed. So with that, Iron Man is able to leave the ship. He goes after Steve and Bucky, but Black Panther also follows Iron Man because he still wants to kill Bucky. Once Steve and Bucky get to this facility in Siberia, they discover that all the remaining Winter Soldiers have been executed. Zemo reveals himself to the two of them, and he now reveals his true intentions here. He reveals that he is Sokovian, and his entire family was killed in the events that happened in Age of Ultron. You actually see various moments in this movie where he's frequently on the phone, and he keeps replaying this message that his wife sent to him. him. And it's a moment that really actually makes you feel for the villain in this movie. You're just like, oh shit, that sucks. I just really love when you can clearly see a motive for everyone in this movie, not just the heroes, but for the villain as well. As a result, he wants the Avengers destroyed, but he's smart enough to know that no one out there can destroy the Avengers. The only ones powerful enough to destroy the Avengers are each other. And that's why he masterminded this whole thing, to get them all to turn on each other. Black Panther has made it to this facility, and he's overheard all of this, and he now discovers that revenge truly is consuming this guy. This guy lost his family, and now he's doing everything in his power to get this revenge. He doesn't care what the consequences are. It makes Black Panther really stop and think to himself, it's like, it really wasn't Bucky's fault. And even though it was this other guy's fault, I shouldn't be this hell-bent on revenge because it's just going to turn me into someone that I'm not. At this point, Iron Man has showed up. He agrees to a truce with Bucky and Steve. You know, hey, I'm not here to hurt you guys. I'm here to figure out what you're here to figure out. And while Zemo was telling the Avengers exactly what his plan is, he also reveals this footage. It's a security video from 1991. You see this car driving along this road. And you remember that this is the scene from the very beginning of the movie when Bucky had started to first become the Winter Soldier and was ordered to destroy this car and kill the people in it. And Tony stops and he says, wait a minute, I know this road. And leaves you sitting there when you're watching. It's just like, oh, God, oh, no, oh. Not this. And you discover that the two people that Bucky killed in this car were Tony's parents. This, of course, has Tony just infuriated, and what also has him even more infuriated is the fact that Steve knew about this. So with that, Tony basically looks at Bucky and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna cut your fucking head off and I'm gonna take a dump down your body, you son of a bitch. And he just viciously just starts going after Bucky. He wants to kill this guy. And you can completely understand why Tony would want to kill him. Because throughout this series, Tony talks about how his dad never really had a relationship with him. His dad was very distant from him. He never even told Tony that he loved him. And now in his mind, he gets to feel that because of Bucky, he never ever got to form a relationship with his father. Steve's trying to stop him at various points, but Tony even looks at him and he's like, no, he killed my mom. I mean, you ask anybody what they would do in this situation, and yeah, of course they would try to kill Bucky. But at the same time, Captain America steps in, he fights off Iron Man with Bucky, because you also see this from Steve's perspective. Bucky is Steve's best friend, and Iron Man, this guy is trying to kill him. Of course Steve is gonna step in to try to protect him. At the same time, Steve is trying to tell Iron Man, you can't be mad at Bucky. This wasn't his fault. This was Hydra. Hydra controlled him. Hydra made him kill your parents. This is not Bucky's fault. It's Hydra's. Be mad at Hydra. You can't kill him for this. It's another moment where both sides are right and it just leaves you conflicted. So yeah, the fight goes on between the three of them. It's really intense. It's dramatic. And then one moment comes in particular that really hit me where I live. Steve looks at Tony and he just says, I'm sorry, Tony, but I don't have a choice. He's my friend. And Tony looks at Steve and he just goes, so was I. Because we all know that throughout these series, Iron Man and Captain America, they argue about everything. They have very different opinions on pretty much everything. They argue all the time. But in that moment, you see right there that despite all of that, Tony still saw Steve as a friend. So the fight is still going on. Tony's able to blow off Bucky's metal arm. However, at this point, Steve comes in and he just starts beating the living shit out of Iron Man, and it ends it by taking his shield and jamming it into Tony's arc reactor, which shuts down the suit. The fight is now over. Steve takes an unconscious Bucky and starts walking away. Before he leaves though, Tony tells Steve, like, my father made your shield. You don't deserve that. And with that, Steve leaves his shield behind with Tony. Zemo now feels that he has succeeded in ripping the Avengers apart. He now tries to commit suicide. However, Black Panther shows up. He stops him from doing that, and with that, he has Zemo arrested so he can be properly tried for his crimes. In the meantime, Tony has made Rhodey these legs that'll help him walk a little bit. But I do imagine that the War Machine armor itself will allow Rhodey to walk, so I imagine he can still be War Machine, which is good. However, the movie doesn't quite end right there. Tony receives a letter and a phone from Steve Rogers. In this letter, he tells Tony that he's sorry for not telling him about his parents. He also tells him that he just cannot accept the Accords. He gives control of the Avengers to Tony, but he also tells Tony that there will come a time when the Avengers need to come together as one again to defend the world. And he tells him that when that happens, Captain America and his side will be there to help him. Later on, we get a mid-credit scene. We see that Bucky is preparing to go back under the ice again, because he tells Steve that there's still a part of Hydra in his brain that can be awakened, and that as long as that part of him is in in there, he's going to be a danger. He needs to remain under ice until a permanent cure can be found for him. We discover that Steve and Bucky have been given shelter in Wakanda by Black Panther. And then in a post-credit scene, we see Peter Parker back at home. He's tending to his injuries that he suffered from the fight. And he discovers that in his web shooters, he can now shoot this big SpiderMan symbol into his ceiling, which I thought was awesome. But then the very last thing in this movie that shows up is a little statement that just says Spider-Man will return. So all in all, Captain America Civil War was everything I wanted it to be and so much more. The conflict among the characters is awesome. You completely see the points of both sides. I loved seeing Iron Man and Captain America leading both of their sides. I thought it was awesome. The new characters were great. I mean, Chadwick Boseman killed it as Black Panther. I mean, he was smart, he was badass, he was a really interesting character. I can't wait to see his standalone Marvel movie. I think it's gonna be awesome. And like I said, Tom Holland is the best Peter Parker and Spider-Man we have gotten so far. He absolutely crushed this role. I am so glad Sony allowed the Marvel Cinematic Universe to include Spider-Man in these movies. I can't wait to see where else it goes with him. The action in this movie is exciting. The visuals are all great. I mean, the big fight between both sides, it's everything you could want from it. It has great humor. It has great fighting. The cinematography is awesome. The stunt work is awesome. It had me on the edge of my seat watching it because I was just so pumped to see all of this happening. But what really makes this movie stand out from other comic book movies is you clearly see the motives in all of these characters. You see the motives on Iron Man's side. You see the motives on Captain America's side. You see the motives on Zemo's side. You can clearly understand where all the characters are coming from in this movie, and it adds for a lot more drama and even some emotional moments in this movie. I think this is the best Captain America movie we have gotten, and I love The Winter Soldier. And after thinking about it this whole weekend since I've seen it, there's no other way for me to put it. I think this is the best movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I didn't think anything was going to overtake the Avengers until maybe Infinity War got here, but what can I say? Captain America Civil War just lived up to every expectations and exceeded those expectations. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.